Hello and welcome to Warwick Innovation District's inaugural event launching 5G in the region. Today we'll be exploring how 5G can kickstart future innovation for the region's many creative and digital businesses. I'm delighted to be hosting this session and we're now live. We're recording it and an edited version will be available afterwards. Now, in addition to hearing from our fantastic experts and innovators, I'd like to give you the heads up that you may hear the following instructions a few times. So apologies in advance, everyone. Next slide, please. Over the next 60 minutes, we'll be hearing from BT about the 5G network, where we are now and the future. Fish in a Bottle and RIVR, two of Coventry and Warwickshire's most ambitious creative and digital companies. Finally, West Midlands 5G. We'll talk about the opportunities in the region. We also want to hear from you in the audience. Please type your questions into the Q&A chat. And if you see a question you want answered, do vote for it. Our speakers will answer them at the end. My name's Vicky Jepson and I'm the Director of Creative Futures at the University of Warwick. I'm super excited to be hosting today's event, and before I hand over to the speakers, I want to say a few words about Creative Futures. Creative Futures is a gateway between the University of Warwick and the region's creative and digital businesses. Here's a quick summary of what we do. We inspire, educate and incubate on and off campus, offering space, business support, mentoring and networking to support growth, creative ideas, enterprises and innovation. We celebrate the strength and range of the region's creative businesses, from computer games developers to TV production companies, digital media agencies to immersive content producers. We're passionate about creating a diverse talent pipeline which responds to skills gaps within the creative sector, increasing the opportunities for students, graduates and local businesses. And the exciting news, hot off the press, is that we've just joined forces with 1 Mill Street, a new co-working space in Leamington Spa. Over the next couple of years, we'll inspire, stimulate and connect over 500 potential innovators and help create new businesses within the region's creative and digital sector. Based at 1 Mill Street, we set up a Creative Futures incubator, which will be a launchpad for new enterprises. Businesses will get 6 months of free space and support to develop, grow and scale up. Do check us and 1 Mill Street out online. In fact, come and visit when it's safe to do so. Creative Futures is partnering with BT and Warwick County Council, operating under the umbrella of the University's Warwick Innovation District, which brings me on to our first speaker and those little 3 words. Next slide, please. I'd like to welcome David Plum, Chief Innovation Officer at the University of Warwick.
Thanks, Vicky, and I'm delighted to be here today. If I can add my welcome, it's fantastic to have the partners BT and Warwickshire County Council with us in terms of this endeavour. I put this slide together to kind of share the objectives that we have for our innovation group here. And you can see it's vitally important for us to play a leading role in supporting our region's startup and scaling businesses, but also to spin out the research from the university so it can be good for society and to kind of inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs in the creative and digital space. On this next slide, you'll see our strategy and our activities, and it really starts with the right places. So I was absolutely delighted that we're going to be moving into Mill Street to inspire, to incubate new creative and digital businesses. But also we have other places as well in terms of on campus, Wellesbourne, over at the hospital in Coventry, Solihull. There's a network of places including and linked through digital, and it allows us to bring together partners, investors and subject matter experts to inspire innovation across all of our communities. So 2020 has definitely been our best year ever, and if you look at our outputs, I'm really proud of the team right the way across the Warwick Innovation District. In total, we've helped our businesses raise just over £45 million of investment for Warwick companies. We've engaged with over 7,000 people, and we've helped 500 businesses start, scale, pivot, or indeed survive in this challenging year. So I'm really proud of the progress that we've made this year. And then when I look forward to 2021, we plan to challenge ourselves further and really go to the next level, launching 3 new incubators. And you've already heard about the Creative Futures one, which we'll be talking about today. But we also plan to launch incubators in deep tech, which is AI and data science and science-led discovery, and also in terms of health and well-being. So it's a super exciting time to be working with our key partners, BT, Warwickshire County Council and NatWest, to really drive economic recovery for our region. Thanks, Vicky, and it's back to you now.
Thank you very much, David. And if anyone has any questions, do please drop them into the Q&A chat. Delighted to say that our tech team tells us we've got 70 people in the audience. So yeah, lots of opportunity for questions there, please. Next, we hear from BT, who have been instrumental in the rollout of 5G across the UK. So I'll hand over to David Farmer, Business Development Director, BT.
Yeah, thanks. And for those in the audience, it's Darren, by the way, not David, but thanks, Vicky. It's great to be here today, and hello to everyone that's on the webcast. Before we get into some of the experts, the industry experts, I just wanted to spend a couple of moments talking about the role that we've played here and what 5G is, because I'm guessing we've got a pretty eclectic audience, some will know more, some will know less. So as people know, I'm representing BT here today, and BT as an organisation, we purchased a mobile network operator called EE, some will know, back in 2015, so quite a while ago now. And over the last 5 years, we've won consecutive awards for being the best network. We've built on that progress by being the first operator to launch 5G back in May last year, and we've now got the largest 5G footprint in the UK, with 111 towns and cities live. They include cities that are local to us, so Birmingham, Coventry now has 5G, and also the University of Warwick campus, the central campus itself. And in fact, the Warwick University is the first 5G campus. It's had 5G on campus for private 5G on campus for quite a long time, but now they have public 5G network from BT and EE. And that obviously brings benefits to students, researchers, businesses, staff, and we're already seeing speeds demonstrated of 700 to 900 meg on that site. We've also expedited the delivery of public 5G in places like Leamington Spa to support the Creative Futures and Digital Incubator campus that's recently opened there. So for those on the webcast this afternoon, 5G for a lot of us blurs the line between fixed and mobile networks, and it's the first technology, the first mobile technology that's really fit for enterprise applications. That's because it offers increased capacity, throughput, speeds. It also offers lower latency and also enhanced security. But that isn't the full picture. So at the moment, we've launched 5G, but it's going to continue to develop over the next 18 to 24 months with things like ultra reliable low latency and network slicing coming in the not so distant future. So for me, 5G is an enabler for future technology, and it plays a role with edge compute, AI and security. What's really exciting is that it will enable industries to reinvent themselves, much like what we saw when 4G was introduced several years ago. And we're now familiar with brands such as Spotify, Just Eat, had success with Google Maps, many over-the-top providers that have reinvented industries because data and access to data services on the move have increased so much. So now what I'd like to do is hand you over to Tim, who's going to tell you a little bit more about what's happening from our perspective in the area of gaming and creative futures.
Okay, thank you very much, Darren. And I'll immediately start by correcting one thing you said. It's now 112 places, not 111. So just showing the pace of change there. So to the rest of you, hello, I'm Tim Rawling, and I've got the best job in BT. I sit within the BT Consumer Division in the Chief Technology Information Office, which nestles between technology and marketing. And that means that I'm paid to play with some of the latest technologies and to work out how to get it into BT's roadmaps. One of my areas of responsibility is mobile, which includes 5G, and the other one is gaming. So I'm delighted to be here to talk to you about both for the next 10 minutes or so. Next slide, please. So the role of BT Consumer is to bring the superfast fibre network and superfast 5G network to the consumers of the UK, enabling them to do whatever they need to do, whether that's browsing the internet, watching TV, or, as in this webinar, playing games. And when it comes to gaming, we've got partnerships in place that allow us to get strong gaming offerings to our customer base. And this includes partners like Microsoft for Xbox, Google for Stadia, and Niantic on the mobile side. And before the comments light up, I'm afraid we've sold out of the new Xboxes and PS5s. So if you've not already got yours under the tree, or at least in your letter to Santa, I'm afraid I can't help you. Sorry. Next slide. We're in consumer, we're all about the customer. And what do the customers on EE's mobile network and BT's fixed line network want when it comes to gaming? So we've looked at a few of the different segments of our subscriber base to see what they're playing. And you'll see a spectrum of levels here on gaming engagement, with the committed gamers on the left, the all-in gamers, through to the time killers on the right. These are people who might not consider themselves to be gamers, maybe playing on the bus or the train. But for each segment, I've got a word cloud here of the type of game they play. And there's an upper level and a lower level. The mobile games are the ones on the top, and the broadband games are the ones underneath. So you can see that Candy Crush on mobile and FIFA on fixed are the popular games. But what's noticeable is that there's a very different type of game being played by people, whether they're at home or when they're on the go, which might be down to location, because being on the bus doesn't lend itself to playing Grand Theft Auto, but it's also a function of the device capability. So my smartphone, it might have more computing power than the original shuttle mission, but it's not enough to power Arthur and his horse through the landscapes of Red Dead Redemption. And the games themselves are becoming more demanding on the underlying silicon, particularly as new technologies like AR and VR start to take hold. And we're also seeing these new devices coming along for gaming, so VR headsets, which are coming with their own set of games and their own set of challenges as we try to render these high-definition stereoscopic images in real time. Next slide. I'm sorry about this one. I really was never very good at art. So we've looked at some of the games being played by the subscribers on fixed and mobile networks. And these games have really moved on from the arcade games of the 1980s. And the way they're delivered, that's changing too. So as consoles and gaming PCs made their way into people's houses, they weren't connected to the internet. They plugged directly into the back of the television, and the games were supplied on physical media like cartridges or CDs. I've dated this here as pre-2001, which is when the Sega Dreamcast came as an internet-ready console. But the only multiplayer gaming really at this point was provided through either an additional controller and splitting the television screen, or by going to a physical LAN party. Now, since then, the gaming landscape's changed dramatically, and the internet's become a critical part of gaming, whether that's for communicating with a gaming server to coordinate your multiplayer game, or to download new games and game updates. So there's also some gaming associated services that we need to be aware of, like Discord and other communication services that allow gamers to chat and coordinate moves during their gaming sessions. And things like Twitch. Esports is becoming an increasingly popular form of, I suppose, more passive gaming entertainment. So gaming might once have been a solitary pastime, but we need to recognise that it's an extremely social form of entertainment now. Certainly my family, my son, is constantly playing, and he's talking to his mates all the time. Mobile gaming is also popular, but the majority of that is time-killing games like Candy Crush, and the real-time multiplayer aspect you're seeing in the console games that you might play on broadband is missing to a large extent. And there's been relatively little exploitation of the mobile environment so far, although we do need to recognise that Pokemon has been wildly popular, with that as a GPNS-enabled game, making use of some of the capabilities that mobile data networks have. And this increased usage of the internet puts new challenges on the network providers. The multiplayer aspect is relatively limited in terms of the impact. The gaming packets are very small and games tend to be relatively tolerant of latency. And while there's some niche gaming ISPs, gaming routers and optimization products, all these things are available. But really, the majority of games work well on a mainstream ISP connection. Game updates are trickier for the ISP. Those are nearing about 100 gigabytes in size for some of them. And it used to be the case that your game would update when you turned on the console, spreading the load for the ISP over the course of a day or two. But now everybody leaves their console on all the time, and that downloads updates as soon as they're available. And here, I mean, this is huge amounts of data. BT saw around 20 terabits per second of traffic coming through the network with the recent Xbox release, and Call of Duty Black Ops, which pre-download came alongside it. But it's the picture on the right on this slide that's the most interesting. The gaming landscape is changing yet again, and we're seeing cloud gaming beginning to go mainstream. And to explain briefly, cloud gaming removes the need for the console. Your game runs in the cloud, with your key presses being sent from a controller to the game and a video stream returned to the display device. And we're seeing that with offerings like xCloud and PlayStation Now for console game and GeForce Now, Shadow on the gaming side, the advantages are clear. There's no longer a need to wait for your downloads or to buy a console or a high-powered gaming PC to access the latest game. You're just buying the service, you're renting it. And all the heavy lifting is being done in the cloud computing platform. So you can run your games on an old laptop and also potentially even on a mobile phone. But to do that, the network needs to be able to provide a fast, low latency connection, because we need to stream the video to it, like a long virtual HDMI cable. And that type of streaming isn't like the streaming you get with Netflix, where we can cache in the ISP network and buffer the next 30 seconds of the film. With gaming, it needs to be as near real time as possible. Next slide. This is where I start getting slightly technical. To support gaming, we're seeing 4 key gaming metrics that a connection needs to meet. So speed, everybody knows about that. Latency or lag, that's the ping time that's known to gamers, so the time it takes between you pressing the jump button on your controller to the jump actually being registered at the server. And it's often presented to the customer on their gameplay screen, and it's certainly accessible in the diagnostics. But that's not actually as critical as you might expect, and it can be compensated for up to a point. But what can really ruin your gameplay is if the ping time isn't constant, and that's jitter. If you're in a game session, that's the point where strange things happen, like driving through other cars, or a player that you thought you'd vanquished getting reincarnated. So not good at all. But yeah, finally, there's packet loss, and that's where if you press jump, the command never makes it to the server, nothing happens, which could be at least virtually fatal for you. So I've put some indicative numbers on the slide there for what performance is actually required to support cloud gaming. These are essentially those published by Google for their Stadia service and Microsoft for xCloud. And it's worth noting that both of those services will adapt to the network environment that they actually encounter, so the resolution of a game might be reduced for a slow connection. So can the ISPs meet these requirements? On the fixed side, that's where having a rock-solid full fibre connection helps, and plugging BT here, the residential FTTP product, aces all of these metrics. On mobile, this is where we're looking towards 5G to deliver the type of performance you need for gaming. Speeds that we're seeing on 5G today are typically 4 times faster than 4G, and the latency is already better. And we have a roadmap in place as we move forward towards software-defined networks and better use of spectrum, and that can only improve things. Next slide, please. The other opportunity we've got to improve latency is to introduce things like edge computing. Now, edge is a much misused term. In the mobile space, that could be putting computing within an industrial environment. But in this context, I'm talking about bringing the gaming compute into the mobile and ISP networks. on the network edge. So this is already done for things like Netflix video streaming and indeed game downloads, but it's primarily done in order to reduce the cost of internet peering. But it also performs a different role in that it can help with latency. And in particular, for AR and VR reality gaming, the low latency is critical. And if you're taking a video feed from a mobile, processing it and then returning it to a handset, then that needs to happen with about 20 milliseconds to avoid making people sick. If you look at the environment in the UK, the internet is in London, and that's where your ISP peers with all sorts of other people. So the colours that you're seeing on the map here come from Facebook analytics data. This shows the ping times to Facebook servers when you're using that London peering. And you can see how the colours change as you move away from London. Now, your ISPs typically have a direct peering agreement with major content providers there. But if you're in Glasgow, that's a big lag. So if we can take game servers and content and we put them into the network and closer to the customer, then it's an opportunity for those gamers in Scotland and Northern Ireland to get a similar experience to a gamer from the Southeast. Now, this is a levelling up exercise in the UK. The UK is a relatively small country, so it's not as stark a difference as it would be in a bigger territory like, say, the US, but marginal gains matter. I'm not aware of any UK network having deployed edge computing yet, but it will be coming. And I think there are some other networks around the world that have brought NVIDIA's GeForce Now gaming product to within their network. And my final slide, please. So finally, you can't talk about 5G without talking about network slicing. It's a buzzword and another opportunity that 5G brings, so I have to say a few words on it. So network slicing is about bringing a capability of providing a slice of the network that's got the attributes needed by a particular application. So typically positioned being for automation, so like an industrial environment, it might have a network slice that's isolated from the internet, providing ultra low latency. But it's also potentially of interest for gaming. So my analogy here is like a bus lane. You allow a gamer on a gaming slice to bypass all of the congested browsing and email traffic as it speeds through the radio access network and core network of your provider, which it sounds like a great idea, and it is, as long as you're actually sat on that bus. The trouble is, if you're looking at the bus lane from your gridlock car and wondering why that bus lane is empty and it's not being used, it's not such a rosy picture. So 5G slicing, I think, is an exciting technology that's coming and it exists. But with the nature of gaming traffic being skewed towards an evening peak, it's possibly not the correct model for this application. And that said, there's a lot of opportunity to use other network quality of service mechanisms to better support gaming, as long as we can navigate the regulatory minefield of net neutrality. And if we go on to the final one, I have to put this up instead of the standard BT one. So summarising everything I've said, I think that my message is that gaming is a fantastic use case for 5G. And as we evolve towards 5G and full fibre, I'm really looking forward to working closer with the gaming community around Warwick and Leamington and helping bring some of the ideas that they've got to life on these new networks. And with that, I'll hand back to Vicky. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Darren, first of all, and then Tim. Yeah, based here in Leamington Spa, obviously we're really excited about the 5G potential for gaming. So next we hear from the region's creative agencies, starting with Drew Wilkins, founder of award-winning digital agency Fish in a Bottle. Over to you, Drew.
Thanks, Vicky. I'm Drew Wilkins. I'm one of the founders and owners of Fish in a Bottle, and as Vicky mentioned, we're a digital production studio based here in the heart of Leamington Spa. For the last 17 years, Fish in a Bottle have been producing interactive content, games and experiences for our visionary clients all over the world, doing all sorts of really interesting projects. I'm not going to talk about those today. I'm going to start doing a little bit of future gazing, but I'm already slightly disheartened by looking at Tim's slides and realizing that for his game timeline, I've been making games for that entire timeline and more. 5G connectivity. We've got better connection speeds, lower latency, enhanced security, higher concurrent users, lots of shiny new exciting things to play with. But I'm a content person. So I'm definitely much more interested not in so much the technology, but in what that technology can do for us. And so I'm going to try and really quickly rattle through where I think the future might be, and talk about a few of the possibilities. So my slide here is showing the latest batch of consoles. They've just been released, and every 5 to 7 years or so we get a new release of consoles, and we're there at the moment. Now this hardware is not going to change, or not drastically going to change, for another 5 to 7 years. So we're going to be sat here with this same hardware that we're working on for that whole time, but games are definitely going to improve over that period, and that's because content creators and developers haven't got used to this hardware yet. We're going to take a bit of time to get used to it, to develop and get the most out of it, learn the tips and tricks of what we can do. And I kind of mentioned this because we're at the same point with 5G. 5G is new, it's shiny, we don't understand all of the capabilities, and we definitely haven't had all the best ideas of how we can make use of its capabilities. So I'm going to quickly go through a few things. So next slide, please. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is what I consider playful realities. Pokemon Go is a really nice example of this. Nice because everyone's aware of it and have heard of it and probably seen it. It's an experience that allowed players to go out and kind of gamified the experience of going for a walk, so you could make a walk much more playful. And I literally had my kids begging me to go out for a walk. That never happens. That never happens. So it's a really interesting use of kind of augmenting an existing reality. Next slide, please. So on this next slide, we've seen that taken a step further by Minecraft with Minecraft Earth, where now players are able to augment the reality around them, placing down objects that other players can see, interact with, and put their own interpretation on. So we're seeing these kind of playful realities evolving, and 5G is going to enable that experience and allow us to take things much further. So with the introduction of 5G, the limiting factor for these kind of games isn't going to be internet connectivity. The connection speed, assuming you're in a 5G area, won't be the problem. It's going to be the mobile device that you've got in your possession. And when I say that, I don't mean from a storage space point of view or from a processing power point of view. I'll come on to that in a minute, but Tim's already touched upon this. You know, from a cloud computing point of view, you've now got a really powerful device because you're accessing something else. But the limiting factor is going to be the device itself. It's already quite awkward wandering around, holding the phone up to see the virtual things in front of you. So we need better interfaces that are going to allow that to be a more playful and engaging experience. Next slide, please. So the Nokia 3310, I loved my Nokia 3310. It was a great device. We made phone calls on it. But kind of the introduction of a touchscreen interface completely revolutionized what that device did for us. So a mobile device has now suddenly became so much more. And 5G enables a lot more content to be delivered to devices, but as I say, it's the interface that's going to become clunkier and harder to use. We're going to be looking back at this kind of touchscreen interface and thinking maybe that's the equivalent of the Nokia. So next slide, please. So I wanted to touch on a little bit of future gazing and technology that's hopefully coming, but this is Apple's glasses, and depending on which rumours you're listening to, they're 6 to 36 months away from launching, and I take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt because obviously Google had a go at this already. But I think if anyone can do it, Apple, being the largest, most valuable company in the world, has got a good shot at getting this out there. And it's these kind of devices that potentially allow us to do a lot more, because they're now taking away that phone and holding it up and the clunkiness of the interface. So we're going to see the mobile phone become the object that is a kind of data center for all of the other devices that you're carrying, pushing that 5G connection out to the other devices so that you've got interfaces that you can really get to grips with. So next slide, please. This moves on from kind of this playful Pokemon Go style interactions to data layering. where suddenly useful information that's updated, that's live, that's got low latency and giving us really valuable information is at our fingertips, being delivered through a fast connection and always being updated. And this is going to revolutionize what we can do. So we'll be able to see a lot more things going on around us. It's going to help us in terms of living our lives. And I think that the most important thing here is these experiences are going to have to be useful, and we don't know what they are yet. So content creators need to get to grips with all of this to work out what the useful experiences are. Next slide, please. So finally, touching on the cloud computing again. As Tim was saying, cloud computing gives us the ability to access much more powerful processing, larger storage, and 5G enables that. Suddenly, as Tim mentioned, we'll see the likes of Google Stadia, Nvidia, Xbox, streaming content directly to a mobile device or weaker device, and the processing power is happening elsewhere. This is really important for how 5G will revolutionize things, because that processing power now available in our pocket and accessing all of these other devices means that we'll have a lot more that we can do on the move, on the go. So quick summary. I think the world's going to become more playful. We're going to be able to augment it and personalize it. We're going to have useful information on data layers that will help us to live our lives and be useful. And we're going to have access on the move to really incredible, powerful cloud computing and storage. But this is all just my interpretation and me getting excited about what might be possible. But it's not until the content developers start getting really used to what these devices can do, what the 5G connection means, that we're actually going to see what kind of content's possible. And I think it's very safe to say, just like the consoles and the 5 to 7 year cycle, that we've really not seen what the potential of this is yet until bright people start coming up with new ideas. That's me. Back to you, Vicky.
Thank you very much, Drew. That's great. Yeah, and thanks for making us start to think about the art of the possible. Everyone, do please keep sending in your questions. We'll come to those at the end. Next up, it's virtual reality specialist RIVR, and we're delighted to be joined by Alex Harvey, co-founder and creative director. Over to you, Alex.
Classic. Hopefully you can hear me, Vicky. You're muted now as well. So thank you for having me. Really good to be here. I'm sure I'm going to win for saying next slide because I've got a few. So we'll try and whiz through. But next slide, please. So currently, this is my reality. I am co-founder, creative director at RIVR. So we started RIVR back in 2014 after I left Codemasters. There's now 16 of us based just outside Leamington in Southam, but we are moving soon. So we might be coming back to Silicon Spa quite soon. So yeah, this is day-to-day life, but can I just go next slide, please? Yeah, so I started back at Codemasters, basically did 10 years at Codemasters, started in the testing department, working on Grid back in 2007, and spent actually a lot of time trying to get into Codemasters, maybe 3 years sending messages, finally got into QA, finally through to video editing, and then ended up sort of running the video team and making the trailers for all the games that were coming out with those guys. So started RIVR in 2014 and started doing video production. Just go next slide. But we soon moved the video production into 360 video. And the reason I've touched on 360 at the start of this is because the 5G capabilities that we're going to be playing with soon are going to enable us to utilize all the things we've been doing currently in VR in a better way. We've got things planned for all of these things at the moment. So I'll touch on this because this is River Link, and it's a system that we use where we have a router inside a box. It's a classroom in a box, and we deploy it to different industries all around the world. And that router and that experience is going to get so much better with 5G, because we're going to have a 5G enabled box. So the classroom will be completely mobile. We can do it wherever we want, and also people can join from the cloud. So this is for training mainly in different industries. So I touched on that, but let's go next slide, please, because we also use photogrammetry a lot in the things we make for virtual reality. So in the screen you just saw a minute ago, that was 3 degrees of freedom virtual reality, where you can only move your head around inside a sphere. The stuff that we seem to have specialised in a lot for the last 3 years is photogrammetry inside virtual reality. And photogrammetry is the process of taking thousands of photos of any object, human or place, and then making a 3D model from those photos inside software, and then decimating it, simplifying it enough so that we can view it in VR. Now that was already hard enough to do when we were using high-powered machines and Vive headsets, but then now the need is getting stronger to have that remote done on a inside-out headset. So it's getting harder and harder to get the machines that are needed, but the new network that we're playing with is going to definitely allow more of that. I'll talk about that in a minute. So this was the scanning rigs that we did quite a lot of capture for the guys in Leamington. There's a lot of games companies, as everyone knows. So if you see on the left, there's some Warhammer objects. Those used to have to be created by hand. So photogrammetry allowed us to take loads of photos of them on a rig and create the model very quickly. And we did that also for snooker players for the Xbox game. But the reason I touched on photogrammetry here, because 5G in the field is going to allow us to do capture of real places on the fly, chucking data to a cloud and processing it as we're doing the capture. So we'll be able to build models live, either that be on a crime scene or a film set or a game development. It's going to allow us to do it anywhere. So next slide, please. And again, fire investigation training is what we've rolled out all over the world. It's the first one we created a product from. It's called RIVR Investigate, and it allows fire investigation trainers to go into virtual reality, put on a headset, grab controllers, look underneath everything inside these scenes, and investigate the fire and find out the cause of the fire. That's also multiplayer, so you can join those environments. But to make it, we had to burn 6 times. So we've got a facility where we do live burns with the fire brigade, and we burnt it, put it out, and then all different causes of fire, and then we photogrammetried every object. So the second image in from the right, you can see all the burnt objects on the floor. Then they go into the rig on the right, and we photogrammetry scan them. Here we were on site, so we're just going straight to a laptop and saving the data and doing the models later. But that's the same process I talked about doing on site if we needed to. We then made 6 scenes, so the guys can go into those burnt rooms now. And this was how they were doing their training in the real world, but they couldn't move anything around in these containers in the real world because they had another recruit coming through afterwards. So this is perfect reset button for them, allows them to save that cost on training. Going really well. But 5G is going to also enable me to deploy this. I'll show you in a few slides time. Next slide, please. So this is just a few more renders from that same process that I talked about for RIVR Investigate. So you see the models, you can see a firefighter here. We take the firefighters and anyone inside the environments into a rig with 180 cameras. This was done at 4D Max, where they take one photo from every angle, and then so just showing that we can do humans as well as spaces. We call it inside out or outside in photogrammetry. And then the burnt scene on the left is one of the office environments before and after. Next slide, please. This was what I mentioned. We did photogrammetry scanning for an Xbox PS3 or 4 game in Leamington. We went to the Rico Arena, set up a rig and scanned all the players Some of them were nicer to us than others. Let's leave it at that. But it was really good, and it saved about 2 days workflow per model, giving them the render out of this software, which was some photogrammetry software. Next slide, please. We then, after the fire investigation stuff, moved into crime scenes. This isn't a real dead body. So this is one of the guys from the office who we scanned in the rig on the left. And then we scanned, this is actually my mum's house in Warwick. It's a 2-bedroom flat. Laser scanned the house. She wasn't overly pleased when I showed her it in virtual reality, but she got over it when I told her it was being used by the Ministry of Defence. So we rolled this out with those guys, and they're testing this in different locations in the UK. This is a VR experience on Vive tethered to a PC currently. Next slide, please. And again, more of the process here. And you see on the right, there's a firefighter. Well, that's just an AR firefighter, the same guy you saw in the previous slide. And the things that Tim and Drew were talking about, this will be 5G will enable us to show even better photorealism in augmented reality. Next slide, please. So this is touching on much more to do with what Drew was talking about, and also Tim, some really interesting stats there. I didn't know that Candy Crush was still a thing, but it clearly is. But looking into the future, you can go onto our RIVR channel if you want to watch this video, but we're going to skip the video for this bit. I can just talk you through it. So in the office, the software you just saw, the Investigate software, which was running on a tethered PC, you had a Vive headset, and that's how we deploy it currently. You have to put sensors in the corner of the room and a big PC and a headset. You can either have a wire or no wire, but it's still just sending a video signal from the computer to the headset. So we, on day one of Oculus Quest 2 coming out, we worked with NVIDIA and the Grid Factory to make sure that I like to understand the capabilities of what's possible as soon as we can test it. So I'm super excited to 23rd of this month when Microsoft Flight Simulator is coming out in virtual reality. But yeah, so with this, we tethered. So with this, the Quest 2 is the first amazing. There was a Quest 1, but the Quest 2 is the best inside out mobile headset. So it's basically a high-end version of a mobile phone with some onboard tracking. So you don't need now to have any sensors in the room. The headset has 4 cameras and it senses the world. So as you're looking around, it knows if you're going forward or backwards. So this allows you to put amazing virtual reality experiences together with no big PC in the room. But you can't stream amazing VR when we've been working on a high-end graphics card, and it won't show in this device. So what we did here was we used this Cloud XR, which is the whole compute in the cloud, but this isn't done on a 5G network. We were showing the capability of it to do from building to building. So in this instance, in the video, you see them playing Investigate, the high-end virtual reality photorealistic VR, but all the compute is being done off-site on the NVIDIA Cloud XR on another machine, and then it's being streamed. And when we talked about latency is even more of an issue in VR because you've got to process the movement of the person's head. You're not just doing like a button click on Pokemon Go anymore, and you don't have to feel the latency as much. If you don't feel the latency properly as you move your head, then everything's over. It's like your slide game over on VR. If you have latency, it's like the worst thing. So on these examples, we played Beat Saber and some of our experiences using that Cloud XR. It was amazing. And I'm completely looking forward to stage 2, which is doing this outdoor on a 5G network. So as soon as anyone from BT can come for a visit to the studio, I'm sure, yeah, I'd love to have a look at some of your devices that would enable that. Next slide, please. Cool. So RIVR are working on multiple projects, crime scenes and fire scenes and 360 videos of people. But my biggest passion at the moment is pushing AR and VR with photorealistic humans, because we've created photorealistic scenarios, but now I've been testing different photorealistic people and avatars for about 2 years in VR, and only recently, about a month ago, did I see something that was absolutely, my words at the time were good enough. It was good enough to be in a standalone headset. So when you put it on a high-end headset, you get to see a lot more of the detail, but I need it to be able to be played on AR and these standalone devices. So we just partnered with Cream Productions, and those guys are over in Toronto, and they've got some amazing technology that allows us to create our own photorealistic avatars in studio. So on site, we can do the same process that we saw for Ronnie O'Sullivan's head. We take a scan of, for example, my face, and then we load that into some software that lays it over a rigged person's face. And then we record with a helmet and a forward-facing camera the speech or the talk or that person's piece to camera. And then once you've done that, we merge the two together, and it creates a file. There's lots of other bits between that. The guys would go mad for making it sound so simple. But these guys have got some great software that extracts the facial movements and lay it over the rigged face. And then it does some cool texture animation stuff that allows it to be so lightweight. I've never seen anything like it. We put a 2-minute talking photorealistic volumetric human into a Quest 2, and the file was 5 megabytes. So just if anyone's listening understands that type of thing, that's the sort of stuff that gets me excited. I can say next slide, but I think that was the last one. But I'm keen to answer questions. Yeah, over to you, Vicky. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Alex. Great to hear from a local business that's got such a amazing international reputation for VR. So an independent study recently said that the West Midlands has the best 5G in England. Here to tell us more is Leslie Holt, Head of Communications and Stakeholder Engagement, West Midlands 5G. Over to you, Leslie.
Brilliant. Thank you, Vicky. I've got a hard act to follow, haven't I? Super exciting stuff there. So I know you asked me along to give you a little bit of an overview of West Midlands 5G, but also importantly, not just talk about us, but some of the exciting things that are happening in the region. I'm not sure they're quite as exciting as Alex and Drew and Tim just talked about, so I'm quite overwhelmed with that. But let me give you a little bit of an overview of West Midlands 5G. So if we move to the next slide, you'll see our 2 priorities. Now, just in context, West Midlands 5G is the organisation delivering the UK's largest 5G testbed. We're set up by government's 5G tests and trials programme. And this slide really shows our 2 priorities. Firstly, accelerate the rollout of 5G in the region. We need this infrastructure in place to enable some of the innovations that we've already seen. So that is really important. And secondly, probably a little bit more excitingly, is to test, prove and scale new 5G products and services. Now, we are particularly focusing on those areas where the West Midlands has strengths, such as transport, manufacturing and healthcare. So in other words, that's the innovation layer on top of the network. So really exciting to what I've heard today, and the partnership with BT and University of Warwick, and the different sectors that they, in fact, indeed people in this room are focusing on. So leading organisations coming together in our region. We hope that from a West Midlands 5G perspective that we can support through our work in driving trials and use cases. Now, just talking about the ethos of our organisation, we believe we've succeeded by one of collaboration. So we work closely, obviously, with government, our funders and local authorities, universities in the region, and mobile network operators. I think it's fair to say that we already have a close and excellent relationship with BT, and likewise with the University of Warwick. Actually, we are partnering with them to set up one of our 5G accelerators, one of our innovation centres at the university's science park. Now, if we move to the next slide, and I absolutely do not intend to go through this slide, this is to give a quick flavour of some of the trials, proof points that we have undertaken. At the very top, you'll see healthcare, BT, as Darren has mentioned, one of the first, well, the first operator to launch commercial 5G networks in the UK. We undertook our first use case with BT in collaboration with University Hospitals Birmingham, undertaking the UK's first remote ultrasound trial. And I think it's really positive news that BT has actually continued with this work in this sector, developing product portfolio and pioneering further 5G health use cases. But going on to a kind of creative industries perspective, again, looking at the 5G's capabilities, which Darren highlighted very well, and I certainly can't, but it's that potential to transform how existing creative industries and operate, as well as create new ones. And we've heard mentioned some brilliant examples a moment ago. I think what really had a strong resonance for me was the comment about the world is going to be more playful. So if we start with video and TV, 5G has the potential to enable anyone to live stream high quality video in a way that's probably previously been limited to professional broadcasters with their access to satellites and other technologies. Now, West Midlands 5G hasn't done any TV content trials. We've proven the potential of 5G to stream HD video in healthcare, as mentioned, but also in transport. We've proven the potential to connect CCTV cameras to a tram back to a control centre via 5G. So that's a possibility and a potential, and in this instance enabled a number of public safety benefits. But it's the potential usage that will increase kind of the proliferation of hopefully new media companies and empower existing ones to operate more flexibly. Oh, gaming, goodness, Tim, Drew, Alex have covered this far better than I ever could, but we're seeing increasingly gaming move into the cloud, mobile devices during lockdown particularly, and the speed, low latency of 5G is perfect to enable mobile gaming anywhere. The growth of AR, VR, mixed realities, etc. Kind of weaving in real world experiences into games and actually other examples as well as gaming. Let's not forget live events, the Internet of Things. We've seen countries like China using 5G to launch massive drone light shows events, and we're actively exploring potential here with a number of events in the West Midlands. So we're really keen, we're keen to support the continued growth of Leamington Spa as a creative and gaming industries. And we hope to do this by, like I said before, removing the barriers to 5G coverage so that companies, citizens, everybody can access these services as soon as possible. And we really hope we can support some of the work that's been talked about here. Next slide, I'm going to whiz over really quickly, and I'm just conscious of time, so I'm going super fast here. But at the outset, I said that one of our objectives was to accelerate the rollout of 5G in the West Midlands. And as Vicky mentioned, we have, by an independent study, been recognised as having the best 5G coverage. So we like to think, thanks in part to a lot of the work that our infrastructure, our barrier busting team has been doing. And over the next 12 months, we're going to continue with this work and looking at future connectivity, including small cells and improving indoor coverage. So we want to make this business as usual. We want to remain the most connected region. And lastly, on the last slide, going back to the service innovation side, I mentioned we've launched the 5G accelerators, including one which is going live very shortly at the University of Warwick, really to support open innovation, including creative services, along with the test beds I've already mentioned in transport and manufacturing and health. And we will continue to work closely and collaboratively with colleagues here today and wider to encourage businesses to innovate and take advantage really of the opportunities that 5G will offer. We really do believe, with lots of things we've heard here, and more, that the region does have a unique value proposition. And we see this initiative, Creative Futures, and the other things here discussed today in this partnership as a really important fabric of the region going forward. So I've been a whirlwind tour there. So thank you for inviting me and including, well, that's actually us in a lot of the programme of events this week. And believe I'm handing back to Vicky.
You certainly are handing back to me. Thank you very much, Leslie, and thanks to all our speakers for your inspirational presentations and the opportunities for 5G. That it's just endless, so thank you. So now on to the questions, and if you wanted to vote for questions that are already there, that would be great. We've got 5 minutes for questions, and I'm going to hand over to Rachel Davis, the Director of Warwick Enterprise, and she'll be asking the questions on your behalf. So Rachel, over to you.
Thanks so much, Vicky. Really great presentations. We've had some really great questions. So the first question, I think, will be for Darren from BT. And it's a question from James Nichols, Natural Motion in Birmingham. And the question is, there are a large number of games makers in the region, including their own. So is BT going to offer services to help create and optimize games to take advantage of 5G?
Yeah, so thanks for that question, Rachel, and also thanks for the question, James. I think I don't know when he posted that. I think it was probably halfway through. Hopefully, having heard from David and some of the university team and some of the cool things that they're doing and the services that they're offering, along with BT and also WM5G, there's a plethora of choice, in terms of people that are willing to help get involved. Specifically from BT's perspective, we're really excited and keen to influence the way our network is being rolled out, and the things that we do with our network. It's a start of a journey. It took us, several years to roll out 4G. We're a year into 5G, so I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And if you do want to have conversations, then by all means, just get in.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Darren. I'm going to move on to the next question. So question from Catherine Allen, and I'm going to pose the question to Alex, if that's okay. So Catherine's keen to hear from a non-gaming perspective about how you think 5G will affect the at-home entertainment space, especially in the immersive sector.
Thanks for that, Rachel. Cheers for the question. I've been thinking about it a little bit. Facebook are doing some cool things with scanning your environment. So I think, because they said at home, so the at home experience, it's going to be all down to obviously connection speeds. You're going to have a good enough connection as well. So there's always going to be this debate. I've got to bring it up. There is always going to be this debate of, is the network fast enough in a certain area, or is your internet connection faster? So when someone says at home, then I don't know whether the connection at home might be just faster. So I've just got to be open about that sort of stuff. But scanning your world, you should be able to soon. I've been doing it already on my phone with a LiDAR scanner, scanning my own environment, making my own game world from my own house. So if that's the sort of thing that people are after, immersive experiences in your own home might be quite interesting. And I'm sure there's people looking at that. Someone actually sent me today an augmented reality video of inside their house where they turn the whole room into a matrix layer with every surface showing the matrix characters. So yes, there's going to be some really cool at-home stuff, but I think 5G is probably going to look a bit more interesting out and about in the wild. Back to you.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to squeeze one more question in, and this question is for Tim. Tim, what are the current bottlenecks for cloud gaming, and will these be solved in the near future?
Oh, current bottlenecks for cloud gaming. I think at the moment, cloud gaming is probably relatively immature. So if we're thinking about bottlenecks in terms of capacity or similar, probably don't exist. I myself have got Stadia and also a beta version of xCloud, and both work fabulously well over both my fixed line connection and over 4G and 5G. But I think that moving forward, as we start to see more and more people using cloud gaming instead of using sort of more traditional methods, there is going to be a challenge there, because it is real time in a way that your Netflix streaming isn't. And I would expect to see more use of quality of service to try and make sure that this sort of traffic is prioritised to get above other traffic to ensure that everybody is getting a good quality of experience on the network.
Super, thanks so much. Super, thank you so much. I'm conscious that we didn't get a chance to answer all the questions. We'll be doing a short roundup after the event and we'll try and summarise responses. I know, Alex, there are a few questions specifically for you, so hopefully you can follow up with individuals. Okay, Vicky, over to you.
So thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for joining us. If you'd like to find out more about Warwick Innovation District and Creative Futures, please check out our website. The address is on screen now. This event marks the launch of our commitment to the creative and digital sector, working in partnership to make great innovation happen. Whilst we're closing the event now, it's the start of a journey together. Please get in touch directly to find out how you can get involved. Thanks again, everybody, to our speakers and to our brilliant tech team. Over and out. Thank you very much.